Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Abir Pothi's Samvaad. Today we have Ms. Jaya Jaitly with us. She's like a cultural connoisseur. She's has set up Dastakar and she has recently curated the whole exhibition of crafts in the new Parliament building. She has written a huge mammoth work, Craft Atlas of India. Welcome, Jayaji. Abir Pothi welcomes you. And then we would want to start talking about the latest work you have done, which is about uh, this setting up this whole exhibition and in the Parliament. And how did it like? How did you think about it, and how did it work? Let's start from there.
Thank you for inviting me, first of all. This is a subject close to my heart, not parliament, but crafts as such. And I feel as I get older and more experience, seen more, I feel that the reach of craft is much, much larger and has the potential for a much wider reach than people have so far thought it to be. Before independence and before the British came and changed all our cultures, we lived with our crafts not as a craft object, not as a decorative object, not as something to be put on our wall or a kind of fancy. Today, the handicraft, when you think, it becomes something that is online or a dibba on a shelf in the shop. But otherwise, our whether it is ritual or cooking or clothing or wearing jewelry or even the farmer, anybody who used anything in their life was out of a handcrafted object. And I think that made the craftsperson also, despite all our problems of caste differences that came about, the craftsperson was a very necessary part of society. But today, things have changed because of, well, British influence, Western influence, the power of their media. Also, more than anything else, the industrialization today, technology. All technology about marketing anything becomes about going online. So the life and soul of the human being who makes it, the hands of the human being who makes it, goes out of the picture. And this is all very sad. We used to have crafts in so much of architecture, interiors, and we should get it back. And I believe some of us who are dedicated our lives to it and we understand more and more its potential, which was lost, it is our duty to bring it back again.
So, how did this idea and how did you conceptualize this thing? Because this is like again a kind of huge work, clearly integrating multiple things like tradition, nature, uh, so much of women who are kind of part of this whole
Parliament
process.
work, you mean? Well,
Yes.
actually, most of my work in life becomes a matter of chance. I don't seek anything, I don't ask for it. But
Hmm.
somehow I found myself appointed on a committee, advisory committee, to advise on art installations in Parliament, in the new Parliament. So
Yes.
when the committee sat for its first time, we were addressed by the chief architect, who happily and repeatedly mentioned the word arts and craft. He didn't just say art. And he also mentioned that the PM was interested in both these things.
Hmm.
And he gave us some subject matter like unity in diversity and freedom struggle, just two. And he was interested that the art installations should cover these subjects. But when I found the committee was mostly museum directors, very prominent museum directors, or historians, or sculptors, or scholars, I was the only craft representative in that committee of more than 20 people.
Hmm.
And I am not an advisory type of person, I'm a doing kind of person. So by the time the next meeting came, thankful for the fact that they mentioned craft so prominently, I gave 7 examples, visualizations of how we can use craft, applying it in various ways to these subjects which he had mentioned. Somehow they all liked it so much that they said, all right, you do them. So from an
Wonderful.
advisor, I became an implementer, which made me quite happy. And then the next couple of meetings, One of them, IGNCA, mentioned to me very surprisingly and very nicely. Fatafat, they mentioned 8 themes. The member secretary of IGNCA.
Yeah.
So he said all this: Samrasta, Yatra, Asta, Prakriti, Parv, Swavlamban, Ullas, and Gyan. How it came to his head so quickly, I don't know. But it also, the ideas came to me as quickly. So there was some good combination of stars there. So
Yes.
within 3 days, I was able to visualize each of these. And because I'm so familiar, I mean, 45 years of working in this field must give us some benefit. So I
Absolutely.
had many, many ideas for crafts, how to use them. Plus, despite my age, I'm very contemporary and modern in my thinking. How do we get the old to become new while keeping the essence of its old? So that is how I approached all of these. So none of them are typical, obvious, actual, realistic simulations of the idea, but they are, some of them are fairly direct, some of them have very many layers of meaning, which came
Mhm.
to me because, again, not just for craft and art, but because one is also deeply entrenched with the culture of our country. Despite
True.
having studied abroad and graduated in English literature and spent much of my life abroad, my whole life and soul is somehow very closely attached to the rural part of India, the crafts of India, and all my knowledge about India's culture and what we feel as a country, united and diverse and everything, is learned from my craftspeople. So I always have to salute them because I don't think any historian or scholar or any book could tell me as much as I've learned just from working with them, listening to them, and understanding what their great capacities are, although they may not speak a word. So
True.
that is how I got these ideas. I think the inspiration came from that.
So what
Now,
is, if
your
you can illustrate, if you can illustrate one of the best kind of, experiences, which is like bringing this whole journey, connecting the dots, and like,
yes.
and then
I
adding
think
this.
it is probably one of the most exciting and fascinating challenges. I would call it a challenge. These days, people use the word challenge when they don't want to use the word problem. But this is not a problem at all. It was a challenge because a challenge is something that makes you step up and do something better, think afresh. So I looked at it as that. And again, I will repeat what my karigars are saying. They are saying कि दुनिया में जिंदगी में सबसे अच्छा काम किया होगा. I might have done wonderful work, big orders, earned lots of money, but this, knowing that this piece of our हाथ का काम is in parliament, the highest institution of the land, for us
Yes.
is the biggest honor of our lives. Now, I think for all those people, going back to a little bit of politics, those who shunned the inauguration day and made a big drama out of it, it is really very sad that people can't rise above the petty politics just for one day.
Hmm.
Because people argue that, oh, there is so much poverty, the wrestlers are struggling outside, and this has happened, that has happened. But that is for a session of parliament where you're meant to discuss these things.
True.
This was only the opening of a new building. Like anything new, we light a lamp, we celebrate, and we may be from opposing groups or parties, but we all light the lamp together. This was a lovely occasion for that, and I really feel extremely disappointed with the people who did not come there because
Hmm.
they missed out on something very, I think, high-minded, which was a
Yeah.
pity. So,
Correct.
but the
Politics
other
aside, I think, but nothing can take away from what they have done and what you have done, like bringing all that together.
I
So,
suppose so. So the Karigars themselves are teaching our MPs a lesson, those who didn't come, that
yeah.
hamare liye this was the highest sthan and our work was there. They haven't
Hmm.
entered it, they haven't seen it, they have no great hopes of being inside that building, but just they
Hmm.
have one piece of work meant so much to them.
True. So, I mean, how many lives would you have? I mean, this is like such a. I mean, I was just curious to kind of ask this question. That how many lives would have touched or brought them to some kind of a curated spaces in your journey of working with all the craftspeople of India? I mean,
Very
you know,
difficult to
you,
say
you you
because
must be you must
that,
be a millionaire in your own right. Touching a million lives probably, directly, indirectly, because in a way, of course, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. So,
well, I can't really assess because I don't count, I don't work with statistics or facts or figures. I work with people's hearts and souls. But
mhm,
I remember once in Delhi Haat, I went and I was looking at Karigar from Odisha using some rope and making a stool. So I stopped and I said, "Ye bahut achhe hai." So they seemed to know me. I don't remember what I'd done with them. But just the fact that I had set up Delhi Haat, they
mhm,
said, मैम आपके कारण 800 लोगों को 2 समय का रोटी मिलता है हमारे गांव में. So
exactly.
I found it such a lovely thing. I
Mhm,
don't notch up that okay, that is 800 people. But the other point is that when I made Delhi Haat, 150 stalls, and you say that you rotate them twice a month. So that's 300 people occupying. 300 people would minimum, each person would affect 5 lives of their own family,
absolutely.
or this गांव का 800, or maybe cooperative society के 10-20. So if you
Mhm,
add all that, and then our sales, when we do our bazaar, our sales for 2 weeks has reached 6.5, 7 crore,
wow,
and directly into their hands. So the money
absolutely.
that goes back. So these are calculations which are like off the back of my head. Neither am I a mathematician nor a
Mhm.
statistician, and neither do I want to impress people with these figures. If the
No, but
karigar
this
is
is a real impact. Yeah,
if the karigar is happy and smiles and keeps saying Dilli Hata mein aana hai, then that's a good thing. So this is
absolutely.
how I assess. There's another project which I'm very proud of, which is called Akshara, crafting Indian scripts. Now,
Wow.
karigars used to come and say to me, "हम गरीब है, हम अनपढ़ है," and be very dukhi about it. I don't like anybody feeling like a victim and dukhi, so I would get annoyed with them, and I would say that you have your own beautiful language. We have so many of our own mother tongues. Look at the script. If you are unpad, learn from your children's school book how to write the alphabet in your own script.
Language.
Then, and what is your kala? If you are weaving, you are much better than somebody who knows a computer because you are using your fingers in just the same way as they do. So they are creating something on a screen. You are creating something which somebody can tomorrow wear. So
Mhm.
that is your ability. So don't undermine your own ability. But then I felt that let us gather craftspeople from every field, like wood carving, block printing, embroidery, metalwork, stone, give them all a little training in typography and calligraphy. So I
Wow.
got two eminent teachers to come for a week and teach them. So they learned the word calligraphy, they learned how to carve a bamboo pen to make a beautiful akshar. Then I taught
Mhm.
them how to write an akshar beautifully. So just the k, kh, how do you make it decorative? And then left them to do their own designs. And then I said, okay, now when you go home, now you apply that design ability to your craft. And all I want you to do is to do something when people see, they say, wow. So I gave them that message, and in quite some time, few months, we had 16 languages, 21 craft
Wow.
skills,
Wow.
14 languages spread across the country. Like Hindi, Devanagari may be common to 2, 3 states, like that. And they created very beautiful things. And we had an exhibition called Akshara, in which we showed all these in a very new light, not till then the crafts was being shown with by showing a thatched mud hut and make a karigar sit there with a pagdi and look as if he's still his wife is making roti in the background. Not like that. We did it in a very upgraded, chic sort of way, which could be worthy of any gallery. And that
Great.
was so popular that the government at that time sent us to Egypt to the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, which is very concerned about the extinction of languages around the world. And we took some karigars with us who demonstrated all this. With one of the karigars who does kalamkari, I went to his village in Sri Kalahasti, and he could work the computer and all. So I said, now look at calligraphy in China, Korea, Japan, and in the West Asian countries. Now this you do with your kalamkari. You draw the image of a bird, but make that image contain Telugu akshars.
Wow.
And he did such a beautiful job that his piece finally came out of his own accord, of a huge tree of life. Every leaf, every branch, every bird, every flower was made out of different phrases in Telugu Akshar. And a big sacred art museum in Belgium bought that at that time for 1 lakh of rupees. So
Wow.
they all, so they took to calligraphy, and I felt it was a new design vocabulary for them. Plus, it was a teaching them the value of their own languages and scripts, and teaching them the value of literacy and education. So all three combined, and
Mhm.
so I feel that that was a very successful project, which we then went to Singapore. We went to 7 places, including India and other countries. We went to show Akshara कि इंडिया इतना अनपढ़ नहीं है.
Talking of the scripts, I mean, this, how do we basically, and this is also like about, getting things getting extinct or like disappearing from our daily lives and rituals the way they used to be part of our lives. So, how are we thinking about managing this whole wisdom, bringing it all together, and maybe also upgrading as you're talking about, as you talk about calligraphy and Akshara? How does that happen? And also about after that we can talk about how art and design intervene with craftspeople and how that's changing the Indian scene.
Well, just the Akshara project itself, it brought out many opportunities for the Karigars to have their own thoughts. Otherwise, they were sitting dumb waiting for other people to tell them what to make, what to do. Now, there again, as an example, Pilakua, there was a very nice block carving skill
Right.
which is still there. And I said, now you do calligraphy. He was part of that small group. And he said, Kya likhu? So I said, I'm not going to tell you what to write. You have to activate your own mind. So when you go home, sit with your children, your father, your elder brother, younger sister, all, and you decide what would you like to carve on your work. And he brought these most beautiful pieces. One said, तालीम इंसान को फर्श से अर्श तक उठाता है.
Yeah, but
And the other one, he made a beautiful door handle shaped like a peacock. And within it, he wrote that in Urdu, those who enter are always welcome. Like that. So it became a utilitarian decorative door handle with a lovely hidden message.
with a
So these were
philosophical kind of
all.
a take on it. Yeah.
So this is what I told them to do, and now they go on their own track doing all these kind of things.
Mhm.
And one in Odisha, I got them to do a series of tota images. Tota is first in a cage. Then a man
Mm.
comes along, releases the parrot from the cage, and takes him along. And each of the panels has the parrot holding one card of one alphabet in his mouth
Now,
and flying around with an alphabet. In the
mhm.
last one, you see that the man is actually one of our gaon ke astrologers who, take those cards and then they sote tota, inka bhavishya kya hai? And the tota picks up a little card, sort of like a Chinese fortune cookie. And then I'm saying that education gives you a livelihood. So educating the bird gave the bird a livelihood. The bird educated gave the man a useful livelihood. So that was another little hidden story. And because I know the Indian culture of this astrologer and the tota from childhood, Abhi, you would maybe probably don't even see them. But one advantage of living long is you remember these childhood things. And then so we replicated that in this painting. That painting became so popular, people have used these panels as wedding cards. So they've ordered
Wow.
200 pieces of them. like that. So it just kind of takes its own momentum. Anything which is replicable in a variety of ways, I feel that I've succeeded in doing something new.
I have also been to Dastakar in your, Mehrauli area,
No,
and
Dastakar is a little different. Dastakar in the Kisan Hut in Mehrauli is not mine.
oh,
Ours
I'm
is
sorry.
actually, ours is called Dastakari Haat Samiti.
Okay,
It's
okay.
more of a desi name,
Mm-hmm.
because Karigars must understand that they are part of a Sangathan, a Samiti. It's not an NGO where any one or two people decide what to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have a membership, they pay a membership fee, we have annual meetings, we have internal elections, and they decide what we will plan. कौन से जगह में बाजार करना है, what kind of projects would you like to do, who has a problem with what place, this sort of thing. So ours is a different sort of functioning organization,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not so much the organization that I'm trying to build, but ideas and institutions which I try to create or set up or build. So
Mm-hmm.
Dilli Heart being one. It was
Yes,
made by with my concept and the push of our organization and the voice of the craftspeople. But
yes,
other than 2 weeks a year where we pay full costs, it's not ours. I've never run it. I've never asked for a
yes.
position there. It is
Mm-hmm.
for the whole country. Like
Yes.
we made craft maps. That was another big project of ours,
Mm-hmm.
which was when I went to Thailand. They have a Mary Chandler's map of markets of Bangkok. So
Okay.
electronic things, where do you get puppies for sale? Where do you
Mm-hmm.
get handbags? Where do you get TVs? All of that. The map itself was hand painted very beautiful by some English lady who lives there. And I thought, my gosh, if she can make such a beautiful map just of one city market, India has so much. So that
Absolutely.
set me off on a 14-year project, which I didn't think I would go on for 14 years. एक करके ऐसे हो गया. I've covered all the states of India, and we had a research person, or them going to government institutions, private institutions, karigars, different places, and finding out what is the little bit of culture and the little bit of process, what is the product, where is it made or sold, and then like a map showing how you get there. So it became like for tourists, for students, for anybody. And
Sure.
that each state government that saw it would say, we also want for our state. Other than Telangana, which I have not been able to do after it divided up, we covered Jharkhand. We had done a Bihar map, then we had to divide that up and make a Jharkhand. Uttarakhand got made like that. Chhattisgarh got made again like that. But I'm still waiting for the Telangana government to ask me to do their map.
So this about this knowledge and wisdom thing, as I was talking about that, and how do you think that, like there are so many schools for art, there are so many schools for design and architecture. Where are we in terms of education of one, the craft itself, in some way organized, and then taking it to the next levels where it
Uh,
can find a better manifest and a kind of a global uh, you know uh, spread and action.
I feel that there is a huge resurgence in the interest of craft now, partly because of something that I occasionally grumble about, which is the internet, because there is a lot of online promotion. Karigars today, they have their own Facebook, they set up their
Instagrams,
own websites also. And of course, online marketing, I will share a fact, and that is that every karigar that comes to our bazaars, and we cover about 500-600 a year like that, all of them I've asked, and they say that one bazaar gives them a better sale than an entire year of online sale.
oh,
So online is okay for when you are not at a bazaar. Online is okay if you are abroad. But the thing is that when you are abroad, you work with the Western expectation that there will be exact standardization, exact size, exact color that you see. Whereas if you see any honest website, they will say you will not get the same thing because these are all made by hand.
absolutely.
And That's why I also have another track of promotion, which is to say that when human beings are not standardized, why should our utpadan be standardized? Why should
Absolutely.
we be made to think and act like machines? Why not appreciate the fact that each human being brings out six different types of things? And if you want, say, a kullad of tea, why can the measure be of a cup, but the kullad can be of any size? Because it's like us, measure ourselves as human beings. We need to be a
True.
certain thing. We need to be a certain level of education, some understanding, some experience, some decent behavior. But we don't have to look alike or be the same size. Why do we
Absolutely.
impose this on the most basic thing that human beings can do, which is to produce something with their hands? And I think
Yes.
that and associated with climate change. Use the materials you have near you. The materials will grow at different times. The sun will be different intensity at different times. So you do not expect the same Neel rung to come out of the dyeing in particular weather and then some other weather. So
True.
why do we are forgetting that we are part of nature? We are not separate and we cannot be dictating to the rest of the world as if everyone is a machine. So I don't know. I feel very strongly about these things, and as long as I'm able to do something about it, I keep talking or demonstrating through the work.
No, of course, I mean, I think crafts cannot be like taken to some kind of an industrial kind of a level. But at the same time, do you also feel that, there's something which has changed in terms of our storytelling of, various uh, craft material which we do,
Storytelling,
or
craft is yes, craft is rooted in storytelling, and
exactly.
you cannot sell a craft without selling its story. And whenever I have a little influence, say, on design schools like NIFT or NID, when I talk to the students, I always say in all your projects, go talk to the craftspeople, let them tell you, let them be the teachers, learn the stories. The story is just as important as the actual technicalities of production. And I think they are changing. They are loving craft now, whereas 20 years ago, NID itself told me that we are not interested so much in craft because we are industrial thinking. We want to design cars, not craft. But today they have a strong craft department. They have many faculty who are very devoted to it. And there can be no fashion institute or design institute in India today that does not take into consideration very strongly the craft element of India. So I'm quite proud of those changes, and I think it has a lot of potential. Indian designers are also making a whole big name abroad, but I'm not so concerned about abroad. I wish they would make as big a name among our normal population and our lower middle class or second and third level of small towns.
Yes.
Don't try to wear frocks or stuff. They should appreciate that Indian fashion, and for the Indian body and the Indian culture is always better to have a comfortable Indian design dress.
True.
So let's see. We all have to do our bit.
One thing I wanted to pick your thoughts about was this, and I am like, and I and people from my generation are like, some of them are like fully part and have gone through this. There is a, at one level we are all looking at safeguarding our sustainability, jobs, future, and that has also alienated us from our cultural literacy. So there's an educational literacy, and which is like totally not connected to the cultural literacy of and that shows in our schooling, the way we grow. I mean, even to our own language, it's not just craft, it's also language, it's also about the local geographies, and looking at those things in that light. What do you think? What can we do as society to kind of bring this or align this cultural literacy with educational literacy?
Well, there are so many levels of education. There's the government school, and then there's the private school, which is not so elitist, and then there are the elite schools. Interestingly enough, the elite schools are quite Indianizing now. They all, they want on festival occasions the children to wear Indian dress. They will teach them things in Hindi or whatever. Their performances are very culturally rooted. So there is that. But the thing is that there is so much of use, more and more of technology, of computer driven work, that technology does not offer anything about culture.
True.
So there is a kind of a parallel thing which sometimes I think seriously clash. But if there is a strong sense of Indianness instilled, and it doesn't have to be old-fashioned Indianness. That's why I'm saying that, like going for a moment back to my parliament thing, one of the art installations is called Samrasta. Samrasta for unity in diversity or harmony, that. But in Samrasta, we put printing blocks, hand carved block printing blocks from all over India, plus
Wow.
wood carving from all over India. So that was, as it is a diversity in carving and in wood, we mixed with that metalwork, metalwork of all kinds of metal from all over India, including tala chadi, kadchi, ordinary things, not very decorative. And we mixed the two together, but the composition collage we made was like a very modern high rise skyline.
Wow.
So, my point in that was that with the traditional building blocks of our heritage, we will build a new India. So it was like a contemporary skyline, but with the building blocks of old. So that was a kind of message that I wanted to convey in that.
Is there also a kind of a social discrimination thing against, people who work with crafts? I mean, there's a clearly, when we can see there's a caste dimension to it, but just beyond caste, there's a socioeconomic kind of a discrimination. And people, I mean, there are like also tribals who are part of it. There are also people who are the last mile people who are into crafts, and they still kind of work with that. So, have we done enough to kind of bring that to, you know,
I
bring them
think
towards like,
if you don't approach it as a caste related thing solution that you have to find, but you look at it as a marketing related solution, as an upgrading and marketing. Now there are tribals like the Gond. They are
yes,
earning lakhs for each painting.
yes,
There is the Ajrak printing of Kutch. They are
yeah,
also earning lakhs. Now, when you have the parents getting respect for their skill and earning revenue and respect, two R's which have to go together, then the children don't go to silly jobs in factories and other places. They stay home and they eat their own ghar ke roti. They will work with their father and mother any time of the day or night that they feel like it. And they go out abroad, and there are third and fourth generations now who are proudly carrying on. But then
mhm,
you have others, like for instance, say Bihar. There are weavers' families where the parents tell me, our son is working in a mall as a lift boy. We don't want him to be a weaver in the village because he'll not find a bride. If you say bunkar hai, because of the caste, they won't. But if you say mall mein kaam kar raha hai, he'll get a bride. So
true.
there are certain communities, certain societies in certain states that are a little stuck in the old mold. And you see it in politics also. The same states will also be doing caste related voting. But in many other states which have an enterprising kind of approach, and that includes South, North, East, West, anybody, not picking out, then the craftspeople stand on their own feet because you give them a marketing opportunity, you give them chances to go abroad, give them opportunity to have some self worth and pride.
And,
कि हाँ
and
ये
get their
हमारे
story, yeah.
and
Get their story
foreigners
out.
love it. If you tell the story in Hindi or any language, they understand the language of skill and craft and art. They don't mind. So I think that it really is, a lot of it is market, but not the kind of market that the Westerners think should be market of huge numbers, big profit, not like that. Our
Being a
production
be-
must match its market.
being a woman yourself, I mean, how do you see this whole gender dimension of craft? I mean, I think there is a clearly when we see otherwise the world is so male dominated. I mean, the whole world of crafts is so much about dominated, and they are like preeminent presence of women in that. How does that play out in this, for the crafts and for them as women who are crafts people?
Alone, women can't do it, but wherever women are being formed into cooperative societies, some sangathan of some kind, working under an NGO, they are really doing well. Sometimes one of them will end up forming their own NGO and guiding other women. There'll be one bold woman in the village who will say, "Come, I'll do it for you." So we have many, many examples like that. And they now go out, they do their own marketing, they can talk to any customer. And I think their influence on men is also very interesting. The very traditional, formal UP Musalman weaver who sends his son out to one of our bazaars, he will model a sari just like the woman who's selling a sari because he has to compete. So he'll wear
Yes.
the pleats and do this thing, and I love taking pictures of them because they'll have dadi, chashma, and then they're wearing a
Yes.
sari. So there is a small, seepage. I think if we look at everything like a social science theory or a thing that's a problem, then it doesn't work. But you give people opportunities and let things flow in a human way. It works. At least that's the way I help make it work. I don't tell everybody now, "Mahilaon ko yehi karo." People have always said, "What do you do about working with women?" I don't go and search out women to work with.
Mhm.
As an old socialist, I would say that we are not feminists. We are, when socialism means you are equal in everything with everybody. So
Absolutely.
feminism is just a part of socialism. I don't have to beat its drum separately.
But at the same time, when you can see that, how things have grown, like in even organically. I mean, you don't have to make an, of course, you don't have to make a special effort for it. But then you can see that
Yes.
when they got opportunities, how it kind of worked well
Yes.
for them.
Yeah, not only in craft, just the fact of creating self-help groups has helped a lot. In
Hmm.
South, the self-help groups work very well among vegetable vendors or silai women who will have a machine and who will take orders to make petticoats and blouses for their community or for their locality. They want to work. Everywhere I go, they will say, "हाँ मैं कुछ काम करना है, काम दो." So they want to, and they feel when they earn, they get something out of it. And very backward tribal women, even from Tamil Nadu, today they have very nice, well-run, not a cooperative society, but like an NGO, which was set up
Self-help
by a
groups.
lady doctor, a place called Porgai. The lady doctor used to go to look after their health and found they had this embroidery skill. And it's very interesting. They say that don't give us a bank account, put the money directly in there. If you give us cash, then our husbands take it away from us when we go.
Ji.
So you
Yeah.
learn a lot about the local culture, patriarchy, how it works, how they try to avoid it. In the old days in Gujarat, they used to, all the women did the embroidery, but the men used to come with the embroidery to show us when I was with the Gujarat government as well. And I used to tell them, I won't talk to the man because I cannot explain to you what thread and what dhaga to design to use. You have to bring your woman. So one oldish man came and said, "1 lakh rupiya bhi de do, I will not bring my wife." I said, "Then you go home and sit. I'm not giving your family any work." So after he thought it over and he saw other women coming for work, having bank accounts, he brought his wife. And then I realized his wife was about half his age and very beautiful, so he didn't want to show her off. But after a while, earlier she used to walk behind him, cover her head and face, carry the baby, carry the bundle, and he would come and do the talking. After some time, she came ahead, did the talking, and he carried the bundle and the baby. So it was a lovely little
Wow.
silent
What an, yeah.
revolution.
Yes.
So these things happen without too much push. Little examples. a little nudge here and there. You can't
Absolutely.
expect them to change their
I
lives
think we should
overnight.
probably write all these stories in one place. I mean, even these are like great storytelling about these people's journeys and their emancipation. One question I wanted to ask Jayaji was about this whole, there are like lots of young artists who are part of our Abir initiative, and we wanted to kind of basically come. How do we bring those artists closer to uh, crafts and basically get inspired with them and do something together which can probably also it's like a win-win to both. I mean, you have more artistic kind of an expression through crafts, and craft people also like get some kind of a these kind of exchanges or kind of a shared spaces. What do you think about that, and how you think that can work out?
Well, lots of young people have come to me and said, how do we work with craft? So I tell them I don't hold classes and I don't have space in my office for interns because I can't spend my life teaching when I'm having to do other work. So when we have our 3 or 4 bazaars in a year, at least a minimum of 100 craftspeople come in different craft skills, different levels, different nature, understanding. Come there, you can volunteer there. Talk to each of them, get yourself educated by them, learn about their homes and their families. Then you arrange to go and visit them and stay with them if you like. It's like an open university for that
Absolutely.
short time. And I think that gives, I say, even go around collecting their sales figures every day. See how much do they sell? Why are they selling less or more? And sometimes they will tell you something like, बगल वाला ने बहुत बेचा है आपको कम
Mhm.
बता रहे हैं." So, all these little things about human nature, about the aspects of marketing, all these things you will learn not by me sitting and lecturing, but you're being right there in the midst of it and making it a human exercise. That is my main advice to everybody, wherever it may be. Go to a village, go to the Delhi Haat, which is all full of traders now, so I don't advise it that much. But any one of our bazaars or even Dastakar or Crafts Council of India, they have nice bazaars. Any craft bazaar, go spend uh, even a whole week there, going all day, talking to each person. I get young people who come and just sketch the karigars all day. Then at the
Wow.
end, I say, "You make a nice sketchbook, I'll publish it." So
Wow.
how you introduce each person and how you encourage each person to follow their talent, but judo with craft.
And how do you see art currently, the way Indian art right now, the way, if you take a snapshot of it, the way it is right now, and you have been part of such
Indian
initiatives?
art has always had this horrible division, which I dislike. That contemporary art is supposed to be anything you feel like, all abstract, and you put huge amounts of money on it and you swank around in galleries. I don't subscribe to that very much. Fine, they've made their lives, there is a world for lying open for them. But I've always had this problem that craftspeople feel very sad कि गैलरी वाला को 2 crore मिलेगा एक काम के लिए, but we will only get 2,000 for the piece that is taken more probably just as much. And I've had potters tell me that I mean, customers come and they say, "Why are you charging so much for this very big pot? After all, it's only mitti." And they say, "But you pay so much for a painting. After all, it's only canvas. It's
Yeah.
kapda." So there's a then I have tried a lot, and there have been many exercises even by others to make craftspeople, traditional artists and contemporary artists sit together and make them discuss. Let the contemporary artist answer why the craftsperson, the traditional artist gets less for his work.
So
Like
what
I
is the
just said,
cause? Why is this divide in our own
elitism,
mind?
just elitism. Elitism, the power of the rich, that is there in every field, everywhere. If you're poor, nobody pays attention to you. If you're very rich, you might be utter rubbish, but people will bow before you. So it's like that. You make a name for yourself in a certain kind of society, you speak a certain person's language. But if you're a little shy, you're soft spoken, and you only like a desi, even a bank manager does not listen so much to a person wearing dhoti turban as he would to a person wearing suit. We have it within us. We have every society has it.
Mhm. And where do you get your hope now? Because you have done so much, and there's a kind of long. And so, what gives you hope for this
Hope is
community?
immense potential in craft. The
Yes.
potential of craftspeople to adapt to new ideas, to express themselves more confidently, to find more and more avenues opening up.
Hmm.
Like I'm sitting in Goa pretty much on my own, but there are so many crafts here which have almost died out, which have lovely cultural stories. And I just made a part of a group of 5, 6 women, one writer, one artist, one potter, one person working with weavers, and we are going to go exploring everywhere. Then we'll have ideas about how do we improve that craft, how do we suit it better to tourism in Goa, which is like booming, and then get the government to fund design development projects. Then also help in building a very charming Goa heart, for which
Wow,
I'm working on a design with some architects, and then
brilliant.
have these people come to a Goa heart. So we try and create something contemporary for the rest of the world, but bringing in lots of the cultures of Goa. So everywhere I go, I find something to do. So,
So this heart itself is a very interesting kind of a way, to bring a very rural and concept to a very urban setting, and then so it's clear. Delhi heart. I mean, I have been several times, and it's so different from the usual, the rest of the bazaars in Delhi, or any urban cities these days. So tell me more about, I mean, what. So when you talk to the architects and when you're setting it up for, say, Goa or elsewhere, how do you go about setting up a
Delhi.
local but a modern heart? Huh? Yeah.
Well, Delhi Heart was something where, again, I think the stars aligned, because this was just about the time when globalization had come in, and this word market, market, market was everywhere. But because of my political background, we were saying that why is the market opening up for Coca Cola and potato chips? And why are there malls and supermarkets coming up when we have our very nice sabjiwalas round the corner? Why are we killing the humanness of what we have in India? Plus, I had been visiting over the years many local hearts, especially Bihar has so many,
Yes.
Bengal has handloom hearts, and I find that form of marketing very beautiful. It's a very socializing place. The heart in Bastar, you
Yes.
have your alcohol, you have
Madai.
your cockfights, you have your khilona, mitti ka khilona, you have kapda, you have
Yeah.
sabji, you have red ants dried, which you make chutney.
Yes.
The
Chutneys. Yeah.
whole lovely culture comes up in a heart, and then after that they brew their maua and they drink
Yeah.
and they go dancing all the way home. That
Yeah.
to me was the most wonderful expression of marketing, which was a social place,
True.
socializing, enjoying entertainment, gossiping, bargaining, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had this had kind of got into my system. So when this globalization and malls and supermarket and all that started, I said we must also open the markets spaces in cities for our rural people. Why should they always be at the hands of middlemen who three levels of expression and exploitation happens before they get their money? So
Yes.
I thought that why don't we make a heart? I asked the various departments of the Delhi government, and they kept saying, "Give us a forecast of how in the next 5 years how much you will sell." I said, "I have no idea. I can't do all that. It's an idea, and we should try it because it works in the village. Why can't it work here?" And the
Yeah.
exact system of the village, 2 weeks each, because if you do more than that, you're a dukandar, you are not a karigar. Let the
Yeah.
carrier come and meet the customer. Let him meet the designer. Let him meet a student. Let him meet an old man. And let him do that. Why you have in betweens to say ye nahi bikta, wo nahi bikega, or all of that sort of thing. So it was a design input, learning to collaborate with each other on a common platform. So my socialism again came to the fore. Anyone making things with their hand, man, woman, caste, creed, religion, sit in a line together. Your common interest is to sell well and help each other out. So all of these thoughts came, and I kind of made a plan. And nothing much happened till there was all that trouble in Kashmir
Oh.
with the terrorism started in the early 90s with VP Singh and all that time. So I said the craftspeople were really crying, but no tourists are coming to Kashmir. 7 lakh tourists stopped coming. And the government was thinking of spending crores on setting up Kashmiri bazaars to help those craftspeople.
Yeah,
So I
they have
said,
one against around INA, and I've seen
that
some. Yeah.
I know it's all rubbish, just being used
Yeah.
by others in Kashmiri name. So,
Yes.
so then I said that why can't we make a space which is for craftspeople who are affected by terrorism today, militancy tomorrow, flood somewhere, drought somewhere, or even export rejects where people make something by hand and ek dhaga rang theek nahi tha to wapas kar do. So these people also need to have a place for offtake and let them
Sure.
learn what it costs. And also because at that time they were saying that nothing will be now subsidized, stuff will be cut down. So that was not the Revdi culture thinking. That was,
Yes.
the Manmohan Singh thinking, no free lunch. So I said, no, don't have free lunch. I don't believe in subsidizing and making each craftsperson think you're like a clerk who gets DADA. You pay your own fare, find your own space to stay, pay the rent, and you are then provided with a beautiful, well publicized, well lit, well managed marketplace. And it worked.
Yeah, yeah,
For
absolutely.
10, 10
Revolutionary
years, it
idea.
was perfect. And it worked so well that its success became part of its downfall because then everyone got greedy. Delhi tourism got greedy, the traders got greedy, nobody wanted to leave there. And so now it's all gone very much down the drain. But the idea was let us give our own people markets before we open out markets for the foreign corporations. And nothing happened. So I met Mr. VP Singh. He was prime minister then. Uh, because I was part of the Janta Dal formation, and we all
Yeah.
shouted and yelled for him to be prime minister and so on. It was easy for me to meet him. So when I gave him this idea, he said, "Very good idea. Do immediately." And Delhi Tourism and others got into the act. And I had friends who were architects, so they helped work it out. And very happily, the officials at that time who were around in decision making positions were extremely helpful and very nice. So you need that also. That's very important to have positive bureaucrats who stay in that job till the work is done.
True.
Otherwise, it's very difficult to keep a good track of good bureaucrats.
This is about the public spaces thing that, how do we see? I mean, this Delhi is also example of how to bring, craft and art and aesthetic, our traditional aesthetic into public spaces, especially in changing urban kind of uh, places. So, what do you think about that? How can we have more of those bringing those aesthetic crafts, natural
Aesthetic is a
things,
big
and
problem. Delhi Haat became so successful that the central government made it a part of their urban marketing scheme. And they still will fund every state government that says, yes, we have the land, yes, we have the agency that will manage it. The government gives 75% of the costs to establish a heart. So there are hearts which have come up in many states, some private imitations, some others. Most are not run that well because government has no imagination in running such things. They can
true.
set it up, but it's not only brick and mortar. It's always the heart and soul of the person who runs it, who treats craftspeople sensitively, and who have a feeling about art and aesthetic. But one thing I want to say very strongly, and a lot of people are feeling, is that art and aesthetics in public spaces in India are falling very badly. Everything has become digital, rang-birangi. And do you think that by dressing up a tree in multicolor or changing the color on a wonderful, very old architectural building every 2 seconds makes for aesthetic and decor? And then if you see just in Delhi, the underpasses which have been built, the underpass and the flyover, it doesn't happen that much, but in underpasses, the left and right side wall murals are the most terrible, unimaginative, childish looking things I've ever seen. You have images of a child's shoe with shoelaces open, with butterflies flying out of the shoe, balloons all over the place. I don't know what they're thinking. Everyone who is driving there is saying it's horrible. Who's doing this? I don't understand. Why we have to fall so low when we have the best architecture, best sensitivities
Yeah,
of an ancient culture.
true.
Here, suddenly, everyone has become, I don't know, this sort of PWD aesthetic about everything. I'm sure there are good people in the PWD, but obviously they're not in art and aesthetic decision making position. I would really beg every government to think carefully and change this whole thing. 'Cause I feel ashamed of India's greatness that we talk about when we show on the streets this digital thing which looks like some Singapore
Yeah.
hotel or some Chinese firework display.
So last question now. What are the projects you are currently, you know, engaged with or like conceiving right now, or like what are we expecting in next?
I think
You
that's a
know.
leading question from you.
Yes.
Considering we got together on the Gamcha idea, I
Yes.
have always had a special place in my heart for the Gamcha because I feel that it's the most basic handloom garment for the most poor, simple worker of India. Whether it's the
True.
vegetable seller, auto driver, rickshaw wala, and when I went to Fulia and I saw the women making gamchas, and their looms are quite wide, and I said they are only earning, I think, 60 rupees a day from that. And when we converted those wide looms into sari weaving, they were earning three times as much. And I also felt the gamchas are so beautiful. And then you fast start looking around all over the country. The Odisha gamchas are lovely. In the south,
Yes.
in
Sambalpur.
Karnataka, there is a certain gamcha which the men wrap around their shoulder like a shawl on a certain festival. And I felt that that's something we have to preserve. Even in places which are like the towns of UP, Western UP, all the pavements are filled with Chinese towels. And all the
True.
gamchas will get replaced by this. And I
True.
thought that the handloom weaver, especially the woman weaver, and why cannot be a fashion garment? So
Absolutely.
why make it a fashion garment? Make it also make the rickshawala also feel good about wearing it, not just pasina poncho, gand saaf karo. So I
नहीं,
am
उसके लिए भी
wanting
ठीक है, उसके लिए भी अच्छी बात है, but in the sense
sab
कि it
cheez.
also that's the best part is, in India's the climate and the
Yes,
geographies and the kind of, so from Assam to Gujarat, I mean till Kutch, you will
everywhere
find a
you have,
different kind of
yeah.
fabric of the local fabric. Yeah,
And the gamcha of Gamosa of Assam,
gamusa.
every
Yeah,
woman weaves it in her home. It's a greeting rather than a
yes,
garland.
yes,
And I just felt this is a lovely tradition. So it has culture, it has tradition, it has the woman of the household also weaving it. It has a ceremonial purpose, it has a fashion purpose, and it has a basic utility purpose. So why
absolutely.
allow people to forget this? And
And
so,
compare it to the woolen stoles and mufflers. I mean, the way globally, I mean, when you see this is like a Scottish, this is Kashmir, and this is, I
yes,
mean, to my mind, India will have more use and value of a gamcha than compared to a woolen stole, right?
absolutely. So I just thought I must get into a project of collecting gamchas from all over the country, planning a
Brilliant.
beautiful exhibition, also working on, say, new designs or uplifting the gamcha for another section of society. And because if the upper class use it, then the auto rickshaw wala also feels good. Then he will not feel that it's something he has to sit on and hide. So it's a question of both ways. The elitist thinks that yes, this is also there, and I'm
Yes.
nothing wrong if I look like an auto rickshaw wala. And the auto rickshaw wala says, "Oh, paisa wala bhi pehen raha hai, to हमारे लिए भी अच्छा है." So maybe some cross fertilization will happen of idea,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
that plus also getting wherever possible saris woven like I did with Fulia to go alongside the gamcha. So you have a additional product by the same weaver as well as the gamcha. So this is something that I'm now working on the proposal to get the funds and then to work on it. So I hope you'll help.
Absolutely, will be. I mean, I'm very happy to be part of this kind of thing. I mean, I keep telling my friend that I'm the unofficial global brand ambassador. Wherever I go, Gamcha is something will I always pick up. All my friends know if Nidheesh has to be gifted something, this is the cheapest, and this is such a cheap. It's not costly actually to get a Gamcha. I mean, the costliest. So this is a great gift to even to people
Yes.
who are in India or abroad. To my mind, I mean, I will of course be very happy to be part of it. I also saw at least two people wearing clothes like designer clothes made out of gamchas because
Yes,
they
yes.
are
I
especially in
did this
summers.
when I developed those saris in Puglia. We had a pop-up sale in Bangalore, and so many in 100 saris sold in 2 days. And the women there, next day they were cutting it up, making apron, making oven gloves, making
Yes,
blouses, all sorts of children's skirts. So it's fine. Use it. It's a fabric that's being woven by a
it's
weaver.
a very good clothes. Yeah.
Very good. So also, I don't know if you know, in Japan they have a certain cloth which is called a furoshiki. A furoshiki is a square piece of cloth which, whenever they want to give a gift a little bit ceremoniously, or you've got a packet of sweets, you tie the whole packet in a furoshiki which has always got a lovely print on it.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is some other alternative use for a gamcha. Is, for
It used
instance,
to
you
be
can.
there. I remember in Bastar and elsewhere, sometimes, you're not carrying a jhola to the sabji market. You will actually tie that in your gamcha. Or, I've seen people eating in trains, in my childhood that they will carry their food, sattu and roti and these things
In the
in a
gamcha.
gamcha. Yeah, yeah. That
So
was very common to.
if our exhibition also includes photographs of this sort of usage, it brings
Yes,
the culture of India along with the gamcha.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I
So
think it's an
you,
act of civilization. Gamcha is an act of civilization rather than, just saying culture. I think it's a great thing.
so we'll plan it and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'll see. Thank you so much, Jayaji. This was for taking this time for us, and I think we will come back to you and we'll track the Gamcha project would be next on our scanner. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been fun talking to you.